We'll give you the good news first. It's never too late to be happy. That's just one of the findings by a team of researchers at Harvard. They conducted the largest happiness study ever. They tracked the lives of 724 men in Boston over 80 years and even studied their children.
The insights are collected in a new book, The Good Life, Lessons from the World's Longest Scientific Study of Happiness. And Mark Schultz is the co-director of the study and one of the book's authors. He joins us now. Mark, thanks for being with us.
Oh, my pleasure. Good morning.
So I'm assuming that happiness is not a destination. It's something you do along the way. What have you found makes people more happy on this journey than others?
Yeah, so from studying people over their entire lives for 85 years, we've learned that it's relationships that keep us happier and healthier throughout our lifespan. It's that simple. It's our connections with others.
And it doesn't have to be romantic relationships?
That's right. Really important. It's all types of relationships. It turns out that relationships do so many things for us. They help us deal with challenges and stress in our lives. They connect us in a way to our basic humanity. They teach us about who we are. So it's all types of relationships. It's rare that people could get everything they need from one relationship.
All right, one of the insights is a good life is a complicated life. What does that mean?
Well, I think we're all searching for happiness and joy in our culture today. There's a lot of emphasis on that, and a good life certainly includes those moments of joy and pleasure and bliss. But a good life is also about a sense of meaning. And if we pursue joy and happiness and we lean into relationships like we think is important, it also means we're going to experience challenge and losses and frustrations. So a good life is built on both happiness and also challenges in life.
And you make a big point of saying that vulnerability is one of the keys to enhancing any of these relationships.
Yeah, that's right. I think we all know and we have a kind of intuitive sense, but maybe we don't think about it, that to succeed in relationships, we need to put ourselves out there. We need to make ourselves vulnerable. Many of us have experienced difficulties or challenges or felt mistreated in past relationships. But to build relationships, we need to put ourselves out there to make ourselves visible. That's the meaning of the idea of intimacy, that when we're intimate or connected with a person, people get to know important parts of ourselves. So being vulnerable is part of it.
And I love this exercise. Find a photo of yourself at half your age and ask yourself, what was the question? What would I have done? What was the question? What would I have done differently, or what do I regret?
Yeah, no, it was what was my life like? What was I thinking about? What were our priorities, my priorities at that time? That part of what we talk about in the book is that our perch in life, where we are in the lifespan, determines how we think about things, what our priorities are, how we think about important issues. So we ask people to think back to an earlier time in their life and to think about what they were like, what they didn't know, what they expected their life to be. That's a kind of perspective-taking exercise that we think can help people enhance their connections to others.
I'm sure there's people that think they have a lot of friends or they have a marriage that's lasted a long time, but they're still not happy. So where does that fit into your theory about relationships?
Well, there's no guarantee that any of us are going to be happy in life. We can only do the things that we think enrich our lives and provide satisfaction. So I would say to those people that feel like they've been trying and they're not satisfied or happy in their lives, that they need to double down in some ways, to think about ways to enrich their existing relationships, maybe change the patterns to do different things with a loved one or with friends. But what we find in the study, again, that tracked people across 8 decades of their lives, is that people change. So some of the people who were unhappy for decades, late in life, are able to do things differently, and it's things with other people that they do differently that bring happiness into their lives at a point when they had almost given up on achieving that. So there's always hope for change. It's never too late, is what the study suggests.
I gotta say, Mark, you seem like a pretty even-keel guy and not very excitable. Are you a happy guy yourself?
I think I'm happy. I feel very fortunate with my connections, my family, my friends, really important to me. I can't say I'm the evenest person, but it's something that I've worked hard on in my life, and I've learned some things over the years.
Well, great.
Sure.
Well, Mark, thanks for joining us. The book is called The Good Life, Lessons from the World's Longest Scientific Study of Happiness. For more, you can check out thegoodlifebook.com and ideaarchitects.com.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.